Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear it?
No,
Right, let's
we're just getting some sound up.
technical sound here.
Hey,
Can you hear me?
yay!
All right. Great. Well, nice to meet you, Arthur.
Nice to meet you, Jason.
So you've got a new single out called Zombie Yelp. What inspired you to come out with a single at this point in time?
Well, it was arranged through Cleopatra Records, and it comes out through Purple Pyramid is the label they've got. But they wanted to do a horror album, get it mainly stuff from way back in the 50s, and but moving it musically up into the present.
What do you mean they wanted to do a horror album with you or with various artists?
Well, it's with me basically, but then they will have other artists coming in to make the interesting music. For instance, on the Zombie Yelp, it's Mark Stein or Steen, depending how you're going to pronounce it today, of Vanilla Fudge, and he's playing the Hammond, which of course I've got a lot of association with the Hammond. So.
I didn't realize that, but I did see Vanilla Fudge in concert here in Tucson just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, I listened to the song on Spotify, and it said, in addition to your name, Mark Stein. I didn't know who that was. Anyway.
Yeah. And it's produced by Alan Davey, who has a connection, used to play with Hawkwind. And so this is the album which he is putting out now, not to confuse it too much. And I've got a track on that one called Glass Wolves.
Glass
And
Wolves?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Alan likes, he likes to take the sound and mess it around and add people and make it into a great piece of music. And I think he has done indeed.
One of the things that I just learned about you is that you were a member of Hawkwind for a time.
I was invited to be their dramatic lead singer. That went on for about, I think 6 months.
Okay. And what period of time was this?
That would have been around about 2003 or something like that.
Okay. I've always been a little bit confused about the name. It looks like the artist name is The Crazy World of Arthur Brown.
Yeah.
And I've never been clear if that was just the name of the album or if that was the name of the artist, or if you could clarify that a little bit, that'd be great.
Okay, well, I had arrived back in London from singing in Paris, my first professional engagement, and I moved into this bohemian lodging place, and lo and behold, I heard this magnificent piano, and I went upstairs, and there was Vincent Crane, who turned out to also play the Hammond. In those days, he was playing the L100, which we moved on from when it caught fire, and the valves inside, which had gas and all kinds of things in them, burned with a green flame, and that was the end of that keyboard. And he moved on to the B3 and then the C3. And so he had a small band. We did a few gigs together. And I had an idea of presenting a band that was multimedia and based in R&B and jazz. And so we put an advert in the Melody Maker, and up came this fellow calling himself Dracian Thika. And we said, how did you get that name? He said, I was given it by Winder K. Frog. And so Winder K. Frog was a guy who was pretty important in the early R&B scene in England.
Okay.
And so we had myself, Vincent Crane, and Dracian Thika on drums. Vincent played foot pedal bass, and then the two hands of the keyboard. And I sang and leapt about and wore costumes and etc. And so because it was my project, if you like, the whole direction, it became my band. And so it was called The Crazy World of Arthur Brown.
Okay, so that was the band name.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. And that's something that's I've wondered about for many years. Did you ever think back in, say, 1968 that you'd be recording rock and roll in 2020 or in your late 70s?
Well, no, not at all. I mean, that was before, say, Led Zeppelin and everything turned around, and the artists started to make lots of money on gigs instead of the promoter making all that money. It was Peter Grant who got that changed around. Suddenly the artist was earning 80% of the door, whereas before they were earning maybe 20. And so suddenly they started to be, rich. But before that, mainly your career was 3 years. And if you were over 21, they'd take away 2 years from your age. So I was put out in 68 when Fire was a hit. I was 26, but I was advertised as being 24. That was Track Records decided I had to be younger. And but you didn't expect that didn't expect it was going to be a long-term thing at all.
Yeah, so I noticed that you have a master's in counseling.
Yeah.
And I actually have one of those too. Have you put yours to use?
Do you need any help?
Yes, I think everybody that pursues a degree in psychology needs help. But I worked as a high school guidance counselor for a while. So I did put it to use. But what about you?
I did some time in a kind of crisis center for young people on abuse and drugs and stuff, and that was that you get burned out pretty quick in those places.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
what we did though was I had a friend who got qualified the same time I did, and he was a great talker as a counselor. His timing was incredible, and so I would listen to the session that he was doing, and then I would be picking up on all sorts of issues, kind of unconsciously, really. And so we come to the end of the talking bit, out would come my guitar, and I would make up a song. There weren't, there wasn't a form, and I just filled in the people's names. It was always different. Sometimes it was a poem, sometimes it was 8 minutes long, sometimes it was 3, it would depend on what had come out through the session. And then we would give them a recording of it, and they'd take it home and listen whenever they felt like, want to listen to that thing and see what else I can find in it. And so we got, I was in Life magazine, I think it was Life magazine, one of those big magazines, as having been the god of hellfire and transformed into the singing shrimp.
You know, I've had the CD, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, for many years, and I was just listening to it this morning, and I noticed for the first time ever that Pete Townsend was credited as being the associate producer. What I'm not even sure what an associate producer does as opposed to a regular producer, but what was his involvement with that project?
Well, the thing was that we were playing down the UFO club, and it began to get, you know, red hot, and all the major record companies were coming down there. And a friend of mine, he became a friend later, John Fenton, came down and saw me playing not at the UFO but the Speakeasy. Went over and told Townsend. He came down to UFO and said, well, I want to persuade my the record company who put me out and the Who to get involved with you guys. So would you come to my studio and I'll make some demos? What have you got? And I said, well, I've got this concept and blah, blah, blah. And so he made the demos with us, and we didn't have any experience in the studio. And he was really very helpful, very encouraging of creativity, very much aware of what might be just a little too much for the studio or for the equipment. And so it was very helpful. And he was originally on some of the demos. But of course, when it came to putting out the band, they wanted just the band to be playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. I also read that you narrated the Pretty Things live version of their psychedelic classic album SF Sorrow.
Yeah.
Definitely an underappreciated record in my opinion. But how did that come to be? Like, did you know those guys back in the 60s? Because I know that it was you did that in 1999, I believe.
Yeah, I didn't really know them in the 60s. Of course, I saw them on TV when they were monsters and the longest hair in England and all of that stuff. But somebody who managed me at that time, Mark St. John, was also their manager. And so he liked my speaking voice. He was also a good recording producer, you know. Mm-hmm. So he liked my speaking voice and thought the idea of having me narrate the story. And I had a little acoustic lineup in that time, and we'd done a lot of concerts together. Mm-hmm. And I also would get up and sing with Phil. Would sort of have me up on stage, so I'd sing with the Pretty Things, and that was wonderful. I thought Phil was a very kind man, and a man who could sing with passion, you know. And so I was very sad when he passed away recently.
That was just this year, wasn't it?
Yeah. In fact, we played in Nell's Blues Bar in London. Crazy World played, and they came down on the second evening, Dick and Phil, Dick Taylor and Phil, and we sang together, and that was their last concert. That was, I think that was the last concert they did before Phil died.
Did you appear on any Pretty Things recordings?
No. Oh, well, we did I'm not really sure. the rest, SF Sorrow, of course, was recorded. And on
Yes,
that
yeah.
gig, David Gilmour was playing guitar. And I did sing 3 songs at the end of the set, but I'm not sure whether that was included on the album because they wanted to have it as SF Sorrow, the presentation.
Yeah, a
Gig is
concept album.
slightly, yeah. So the gig is different from that. You want everybody to be jumping up and down and all that. So I did that.
Uh-huh. Another thing that I read about you is that you were using a drum machine like in the early 70s, which was pretty much unheard of at that time. How did you get involved with the early drum machines?
Well, it came about that we had some gigs, and there was a period of about 5 weeks before the gig, and the bass player called up, and the drummer called up and said, "I'm up here with the bass player's wife, and I've got your van." And I just thought, oh, we'd had 3 troublesome drummers in that band. It's not always like that. And so I just thought, well, what can we do? We don't want to be looking around and just shoving somebody in. How can we? So, well, why don't we use the machine? Why don't we use the machine? Came the idea, and there was the Bentley Rhythm Ace was out then, and so we designed the whole set. There were 4. There was myself playing the drums. There was Andy Dolby on guitar, Phil Curtis on bass, and Gooch Harris in the original band, and then it moved on to an American guy called Victor Pereno. And we decided we wanted to make it the rock and roll equivalent of a quartet, music, a classical quartet, so that there's space for each instrument. They weren't crowding each other out, and there would be intricate interplay between the instruments. And we played all sorts of musical games to get used to that. And then just wrote the music around the drum machine.
So
and
did
it was
you?
a very simple drum machine, and nobody else had done that.
Right. And did you program it? Or, I mean, the wording that I read said that you played the drum machine.
Yeah, it had knobs on the front and buttons for. What was amazing was to be in the middle of a slow rock piece, and then you just press 3 of the Latin American buttons, and you've got a huge percussion orchestra. And the only problem we had was on one particular gig. The machine, of course, runs on electronics, and it has all these synapses across which the signals go to the different drums and things. And on this particular night in the Marquee, it was so hot that liquid, sweat was dripping from the ceiling, and condensation and breath. And it got in the drum machine, and it played itself. So we had to go on for 40 minutes following the drum machine. And so we just made up the music while the roadies threw in a prop every so often, and I'd make up the lyrics to go with it. And the audience loved it, but it was, fortunately, we didn't have any more places that were so hot and so, sweaty.
Right. Right. So you just said the condensation made the drum machine play itself? Is that what you said? That the condensation caused the drum machine to play? Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was turned on, obviously, and I was about to start the set, but the things dripped into it, and the next thing we knew, it had taken off by itself, and I couldn't do anything with it. So I just sat back, let the drum machine do the whole set. We made up a spontaneous set because we had to follow the drum machine.
Right.
And then threw in words and the props, and the audience loved it. It was a good gig, you know. Just by
Wow.
sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it seems like it could have gone haywire really quickly if, you know, it was not really under your control.
That's
But
right. Yeah.
that's great.
In fact, that band made you know a single an album that was finally remixed and overproduced by Dave Edmonds, you know,
Yeah.
and who had a great love of electronics and things. And in the coming March, April, Esoteric Records, which is, my back catalogue is with Cherry Red, and they have sub deals with different people. And so Esoteric are putting out the music from that album called Journey, and then the two previous albums by that band, that before the drum machine. And so that'll be a package coming out next spring, which should be, I think they're good albums. Yeah.
Great. You know, I've watched the video of your performance on Top of the Pops from 1968 a number of times, and you know, it's always very engaging. And you know, it occurred to me that, like, you really, as far as I know, were like the first shock rocker. I had always thought of Alice Cooper as being the one that kind of founded that concept. But you beat him to it, I think.
Well, he always says without Arthur Brown there wouldn't be an Alice Cooper. It's not like he's trying to pretend he did it. I mean, his publicity may say that, but he doesn't. And so, right. But you know, if you look, I feel that I'm part of a long train of theatre in music hall. Loved that. You know, the early rock and roll musicals, like Things Ain't What They Used to Be, which was one of the early musicals. And I also, although I wouldn't, it was different. You of course have Lord Sutch, who did some of his horror stuff, who I knew. And then you had Screaming Jay Hawkins, who was a great performer and wrote some astonishing pieces of music. So I feel, yes, I was the one who introduced it in that at that time. It wasn't current.
Right.
And certainly nobody else had a fire helmet.
Right. Right. Yeah, I read that you burned yourself at one point. I would imagine, being the god of hellfire, that you burned yourself more than just the one time, when you're performing with fire on your head.
Oh yeah, it is dangerous. But of course, gradually you get to learn how to use it, and then it you know, it depends. You have to get the right person to be looking after their helmet and lighting it and filling it with the fluid and all of that. And if they screw up on a particular night, that could bring a problem. So we've now got one that won't happen with. It's gradually going through all the years. Started as candles on a crown, and now it's got this. Yeah, you're not going to start fires with this one, but it's an amazing flame.
So you still use a fire helmet?
Very occasionally,
Uh-huh.
but it depends on the size of the room. You can't do it in a small room these days. In
Sure.
those days, there wasn't any health and safety. But yeah, but we still use it on some of the good performances, and we've got a really great show, and that has brought a lot of the elements from the Kingdom Come band, the electronic band with its visual show projections. This show we're doing now, which is called A Human Perspective, has an amazing visual side. It's based on lights, movement. The dance movements are designed to bring light and shadow onto the stage rather than being, like I'm going to have a good time down the club. And the lights projection is quite amazing. Andy, who does the lighting with Yes, and what has happened is that what was perhaps behind a movement in the 70s, that what the technology can do now in sound, in linking lights with the sound, in the lightsman having as much control over the lighting and the movement of color, and if they've got the imagination, it's just as complex as a guitar solo, and as beautiful, So we have a very good show. We've also got a new album coming out. Just signed a new record deal. I can't reveal yet who the company is, but that's a new album coming out next year.
And the song Zombie Yelp will be on it, I assume?
Oh, no, it's a different record company.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, with Cleopatra, I've just done the pieces of work with Alan Davey, and the one of which is the album, and the other is the solo track. Oh, except that I think I did another guest performance with. There was some people got together to do a tribute to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and I did the song "Welcome back, my friends."
Oh yes.
The show that never ends. I'm so glad you could attend. Come inside. And I did that with Carl Palmer's ELP legacy on the last 2008, yeah, last year, big tour.
Right. Carl Palmer was in your original band, right?
He was, yeah. After Dration Thieker, Carl came in, and it was he who was on the video as the drummer, and he was with the Crazy World for about 1.5 years before he and Vincent went and formed Atomic Rooster.
Oh, right. Okay.
And got three top 10 hits too.
What's that?
And they got 3 top 10 hits, as
Did
I
they?
recall.
They must have been UK hits. I don't think they ever had any kind of commercial success in the US.
No, it was UK. I'm not sure what the problem was with the States, but something.
So I didn't know about the new album. Do you plan on touring when things settle down?
When things get back to the place where we can actually sit near each other.
Right.
One moment, sorry.
The tour's in May, June, isn't it?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we are actually. That voice in the background is my partner and manager, Claire.
Sorry.
Claire Waller.
Yes.
Who also helped and was the guiding person for this show that we do. And she's she's the creative director
Of your stage show?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also the new album. She's the creative director of this new album we're going to do. Now, also, I've just done, I'll pull you in because it's a time when I'm busier than I've been just about the whole of my life, I think. But it's all, you know, different things going on. We just, about 8 weeks ago, put out a charity single. It was the idea of Ian Grant and Paul Mitchell, and it was to help raise money for help musicians, because particularly in England, the government help classical musicians, but normal everyday popular musicians no. So we just wanted to try and raise some money. So we put out a version of House of the Rising Sun with a stellar collection of musicians, one of whom was for a while in the Crazy World, but yeah, very, very stellar. And it's had a lot of good interest. So we're about to put out another one, which again, I can't say anything about.
Okay.
And it's just to keep the idea, you know, going, that maybe that something should be done about musicians. The English government guy said, well, when it comes down to those musicians, they should all retrain in another industry.
Huh. Why would he say that?
They're not going to give you any money. Well, because they don't want to give them any money. They think there's not a real job.
I see.
You should go and get a real job. And so, yeah. So it got you know, a good deal of attention for help musicians. That's the idea of it.
Okay.
And yeah.
All right. Well, I don't want to ask you questions if you can't really talk about it right now.
Wait a minute, I'll ask my manager.
Okay.
Who's painting? No, you can with it's just it's, you can, I would tell Jason you're singing with Sonia Christina and load of great musicians, and the Fleur de Lotto thing as well.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten that one. Yeah, so yeah, with the new charity single, I'll be doing a co-singing with Sonia Christina of Curved Air, and another stellar bunch of musicians, and that'll be coming out very soon.
Just before Christmas.
Just before Christmas.
Oh, all right. So
and finally, I'm doing another single.
Oh, okay.
This one is with a Peruvian band who Claire, right there, the mysterious management voice there, and my mysterious partner. She came across this piece of music on the internet, and she said, listen to this. And it was a band with an amazing flute player. And so she wrote to the band, said, we really like your music. And
no, actually, they were going to play New Day this year. We were going to play together.
Oh,
and
that's it.
Yeah.
yeah, and they were booked for the New Day Festival in England, which we're also playing.
Oh,
And so it ended up, yeah, and it ended up the manager of that band got in touch and said, well, we're doing this new single. Would you listen to it and tell us what you think? So we did, and they used that on the publicity for their new single. So that was good, that was nice. And then they said, well, that was really good. And the guy who's producing the album, Roy Z, works with Bruce Dickinson.
okay.
And he's got a track that he originally wrote for you to sing on a Bruce Dickinson album. But in the end, what they had, that was a little, you know, to have suddenly a guest artist doing the main song on that album would have overbalanced the album. So they didn't use it. So the Peruvian band, they're called Flor de Loto. They recorded the backing track for it. It's being produced by, you know, Roy who wrote it. And so now I've written the lyrics for it, and we're recording it, and that'll come out soon.
And this is with the Peruvian band?
Yes.
Okay. Is it like traditional Peruvian music, or is it more like rock and roll?
Well, the flute player, for instance, is of the original indigenous tribes from Peru, and he plays their traditional flute more in the realm of say, the way that Ian Anderson, Jethro Tull, in that field, rather than just playing a traditional style of music. But this guy is the leading flute player of that tribe of people, that whole mass of the original inhabitants. And he is regarded as their best player. So he's a member of the band, and
They're prog, really, aren't they?
yeah, they're prog music, based in heavy metal, but prog.
Okay.
And obviously a touch of world music about it.
Okay. That hasn't been released yet, though, right?
No, it isn't finished yet.
Okay.
That'll be. When will that one be released?
I think probably about a month. It's not long, yeah.
That'll probably come out in about a month.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with me today, or tonight. I guess it's night over there. It's really an honor.
It is.
And
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's a great pleasure to do it.
Well, thank you. You've got a new single out, which I know is on Spotify because I've listened to it there. Are you encouraging people to listen to it on Spotify, or purchase the download, or what?
Whatever they do, you know.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, from the point of view of the record company, unless the Spotify gets into 500 million.
Yes, I know.
It's not really going to make them any financial benefit. So download is better. Okay. But on the other hand, Spotify gets it known all over the place. So that's good as well.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Arthur. Nice meeting you and Claire. Goodbye, Claire. Thanks for setting this up.
It's a pleasure. Shall I send you the tour stuff? And then
yes, that'd be great.
It's cool artwork.
Okay, great. You've got my email address.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Okay,
Lovely.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Meet you one day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. And when you hear all the music, let's do another one.
Absolutely. Let's do it. All right. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.